We're about to get into a story that honestly feels like it's been ripped straight out of a geopolitical thriller. It's all about this huge frozen island, Greenland, that has, almost out of nowhere, become the dead center of a super high stakes global power struggle. And then, bam, this quote just hits the headlines. Now, you gotta understand, this wasn't just some off the cuff remark. Nope. This was a massive signal of intense American interest that sent total shockwaves through the diplomatic world and put every major power on high alert. So that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. What is it about Greenland that has superpowers like the US, Russia, and China all quietly jockeying for control? Well, the answer is way more complicated than you'd think, and it all starts with a huge paradox. To really get what's happening now, we first need to wrap our heads around the paradox of Greenland itself. It's a place of incredible, stark contrasts, and that's exactly what makes its story so compelling. First off, just think about the sheer scale of this place. Greenland is the world's largest island. And to put that into perspective for you, it's bigger than Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Indonesia all put together. We're talking about a colossal piece of global real estate. But here's where the paradox kicks in. A staggering 80% of that gigantic island is buried under a permanent sheet of ice, sometimes miles thick. This is a place where minus 30 degrees Celsius is just a normal day. And that harsh environment leads to this absolutely mind-boggling fact. On this massive island, there are only about 57,000 people. That's it. This huge contrast, its immense size versus its tiny population, makes its global importance even more of a puzzle. So what is the big deal? You know, what's really wild is that this recent American interest, it's not new at all. This is part of a very long game. The US actually tried to buy Greenland way back in 1867. They tried again in 1910, no dice. Then, after World War II, President Truman offered $100 million in solid gold for it. Denmark said no, but they did let the US build military bases there. This just goes to show you, Greenland has been a key piece on America's strategic chessboard for a very long time. So this long history of interest brings us to the first layer of this mystery, pure military strategy. I mean, if you just look at a globe, Greenland's critical importance just jumps right out at you. Geographically, it is the ultimate high ground. It's sitting right there, smack in the middle of the shortest flight path between Russia and North America. So whoever has a serious presence in Greenland has a commanding view and potential control over the entire Arctic region. And that perfect strategic location is exactly why the US military base there is home to an absolutely crucial piece of tech, a state-of-the-art radar system. Think of it as America's tripwire. It can spot an ICBM launch from Russia the literal instant it happens, giving the earliest possible warning of an attack. So you might be thinking, if the US already has a base there, what's the problem? Well, for Washington, it all comes down to risk. The biggest fear comes from Greenland's growing independence movement. See, an independent Greenland could just tell the US to pack up and leave, or they could jack up the rent to some astronomical price. And maybe worst of all, a brand new nation with no army of its own would be incredibly vulnerable to influence from rivals like Russia or China, and that is an absolute nightmare scenario for the Pentagon. Okay, so the military angle is huge, but honestly, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The next piece of this puzzle is what's hidden under all that ice. We're talking about a treasure trove of resources that are absolutely essential for the future of all technology. Right now, pretty much all of our modern tech, from our phones to electric cars, runs on something called rare earth elements. And as you can see, China has a virtual monopoly, controlling something like 90% of the world's supply. And they've already started to use that as a weapon, limiting exports to put pressure on the West. And that is why Greenland is suddenly so vital. It turns out it's sitting on gigantic, untouched reserves of these exact same minerals, the key ingredients for everything from EV magnets and AI chips to advanced weapons systems. For the US and its allies, Greenland is a golden opportunity, maybe the only opportunity, to break China's chokehold on these resources. And if you thought that was it, hold on. We're not just talking about rare minerals. There's also oil. A lot of oil. Current estimates suggest there are at least 31 billion barrels of oil under just one small section of Greenland. The total amount could be truly astronomical. And in our digital world, there is another crucial layer to this: the incredibly important undersea fiber optic cables. The ones that carry almost all the internet traffic between North America and Europe run right past Greenland. Controlling that territory is seen as absolutely essential for protecting our digital lifeline from any potential sabotage. So we've covered the military position and the treasure trove of resources. But believe it or not, there's a third reason this is all happening. And this one could be the biggest game changer of them all. We're talking about something that could fundamentally rewrite the map of global trade as we know it. For all of human history, the Arctic has basically been a giant frozen wall. But that wall is melting. And as the ice disappears, it's opening up a brand new shipping lane, the Northwest Passage. Just look at the difference here. For a ship going from Asia to Europe, this new route is 9,000 kilometers shorter. It could save weeks of travel time and millions of dollars in fuel for a single voyage. And here is the bottom line. Greenland sits right at the front door of this new global superhighway. So the nation that controls Greenland effectively controls the toll booth for the future of world shipping. This is a strategic prize that is almost impossible to overstate. Okay, so now we see the whole chessboard. We see the prize. But what happens if the US gets impatient and decides to just take it? Well, the fallout from that could be absolutely catastrophic for the entire world. See, the whole thing boils down to this one simple, powerful rule. Article 5. It's the absolute heart of the NATO alliance. It says that an attack on one member is an attack on all of them. And Denmark, the country that governs Greenland, is a founding member of NATO. So if the US were to seize territory from its own ally Denmark, it could literally shatter the entire NATO alliance from the inside out. It would destroy centuries of trust with Europe, could unleash a mining boom that devastates the fragile Arctic ecosystem, and of course, it could completely strip the people of Greenland of their unique culture and their right to decide their own future. So what we're talking about here isn't just some remote island. The decisions being made about Greenland in the next few years aren't 5-year or 10-year decisions. These are 100-year decisions that will define the geopolitical map and the global balance of power for the rest of the century. Which leaves us with one final and, frankly, pretty chilling question. As the Arctic ice continues to melt, will it open up a new era of global cooperation and shared prosperity? Or will the fight for this cold land become the spark that ignites the next world war? The future of the Arctic, and maybe the world, really does hang in the balance.